What's that I'm starting to hear, Asta? You got what's that, a finishing move? You got some technique up your hand and your arsenal after everything that this chick is doing with one of the great four like spirits in the series? Alright, Asta. Alright, like I feel like I was Asta like right when he like slams both of his swords down on the rock, and it was just like they're going, alright, let's talk about this. Let's talk. I'm like, hey, alright, Asta, show me what you can do. Show me this brand new technique that you've got up in your arsenal. Is it gonna be your like kind of like Getsuga Tensho sort of slash where you absorb the technique? Is it that, or you got something up, or is it gonna be a joke and all that? It's gonna be funny. It's like we'll have to wait and see. But goddamn, let's talk about him going against Fana in this chapter of Black Clover. So definitely last week's chapter was a show of his strength. This one was very showing the fact that going against someone like Fana, who like controls two elements, even like she controls like crystal, kind of ice-like, and then fire, and a great spirit, which they were saying, by the way, this is something on this level, like one of the most, like, it's on strength-wise. It wasn't per se that it was the strongest out of all the spirits, but strength-wise, that this is like, well, on the top tier, or like, that it can, like, pretty much the same level as an army using this thing. And like, even the fact that Asta was like doing slices to this thing was kind of like, you know, actually kind of impressive. He did like, when he was able to hit it and it was like leaking out because it was just pure mana. So that kind of, it makes an interesting thing that like, if he, Asta ever went against and he went against like the Sylph kind of thing, that pretty much if you do the same thing, it's just a concentration of mana. So it's like, what happens if the mana just runs out? Does the spirit actually die? Does it disappear? Like, what does the whole say with that? And like, even Asta was like, yo, I'm so fucking cool. It's like, oh shit, I'm on fire. Like, just trying to put it out. And then, interesting enough, like, you was thinking that not really the main character was going to say this, but more the fact that, like, you was expecting someone like Vanessa or Finral asking, like, you know, why are you doing this? You know, why you got hate? Asta was just there, and he was like, screw it. Put the swords down, put them, I want to talk about this. Because he's even clearly addressing the fact that it's like, you are not as strong as Vito. You were not on that level. I'm going to say that straight out. He's like, he was way more stronger on like parallel and like strength wise, like, and you're nothing. And like, even when the fact that's like Asta's mentioning that the three of us can take her off, which I'm not going to lie, that's like, in a way you can think of that, oh, she's really weak compared, like, you're expecting like, or like, you know, the YI Knights are like, like they're supposed to be like this, like unparalleled strength, and like, yeah, Vito was just on this complete brawn, but you gotta remember this chick is completely insane. She controls two elements and a spirit, and I might think hopefully there's a little bit more up her arsenal like on there, because due to that Vito was like a really enjoyable opponent, and I hope they give her more, and especially then when they were getting like this kind of this flashback that she was seeing, which honestly I was like when we was asking about, was that like generally they were saying about Leet, like that they were pointing out on there, like, because generally when she was looking at that memory of like, I believe it was Leet that they were seeing there, like having like the hair back, and it was like talking about, oh, we made a human friend, and then turns out that the humans started attacking us and that they were just burning us down, and the fact that she got really completely pissed off about this and revealed her third eye to this matter, saying, you know, this is why we hate all of you pieces of shit, and this is why we're going to destroy you on purge. And the fact that she was like, just when she activated it was more, and like even the spirit itself, the dragon, like what we saw, this salamander just transformed more like draconic like, and it was just like completely grabbing horns and scales, and it honestly looked very veiny, just this very repulsive looking like dragon that was just like, oh my god, you don't want to like have a fucking tussle with this thing, because it's clearly like insanely low. And the fact that you got like fire coming from that, and then you got her herself like wielding fire, there's wind, she's manipulating tons of elements at this point, and the fact that Asta's like welcoming, relishing the challenge, where it's just like, I'm going to grab both of my swords and I'm going to do a new move out of this. I'm going to see what magic can happen out of this, where he's just, and that's the thing generally, because we've seen what like his blade, his smaller blade can generally, like what we've seen with the demon slaying and the demon sealing swords, that like the one that we've seen is that one of them can absorb and reflect the attack and add with its own little oomph and power, and the other one can completely deflect all attack, and it's more his defensive tool. Like clearly with a giant sword, that's what it's meant to do. Like he's got an offense sword and he's got a defense sword. So the finishing move is like clearly that he's like using up into his arsenal style is the fact that he's fully committed to like the two wielding style. Like you even saw when he was going against Fana on top of the dragon, which I kind of honestly that reminded me like kind of like fairy tale, like Natsu going against like what we saw with like Future Rogue going up there fighting on top of the dragon, kind of really reminded me. the fact that he was like using the other sword as well, like as a sword, like just right on her neck. It's like I could have just took you out right then and now, and it's like I took the fire, and I think that was clearly much of the show right there. The fact that he's completely much stronger than he was against Vito, and it's like this chick, I'm not gonna lie, she's a little bit disappointing, I am going to say, on the fact. So that's the one thing I'd say about the chapter. It's like, she's not really showing her stripes at the moment, where it's like, definitely, I think Leo gave this a high expectation, but then as well, they're all on their like different kind of levels where they had to do this. And then you got to add into it that it was Yami at the end that kind of had to finish this opponent, and it's like, this is someone against Asta, and then each of them seemingly like they specialize in their own thing, like what we've seen as well. We've got the one guy that's like specializes in espionage, this chick seems like she specializes in just magic, and the other guy was just raw strength and power. But then again, it's like, you know, after just seeing like the impressive opponent that they just went against, where it took like every single one of them to take it down, and now that's like Asta alongside with Finral and like Vanessa, who are honestly just there to support and just able to like make him fly and get up there. It was like, actually kind of like I was expecting a little bit more out of her, but like generally when we're seeing the dragon, I'm like hoping that she doesn't just get wiped out in the next chapter. And then it adds into that, well, what about Mars? Because clearly that this is the same chick that he knows in his past, so I'm wondering, you know, what exactly is happening to that, and like what happened to her all that time. Like, did she just go crazy? Because clearly she just, her whole thing is like the same thing with Vito, like she's just gone on like, you know, just rage, depression, sadness, like it's clearly, and then like the fact that like just when you look at her, there's just sheer crazy in her eyes. I think I did like there were some really good points in the chapter, like you was seeing like Asta was going in, we did get to see the new form of the actual like dragon spirit, we saw it itself with the salamander. I really was liking that form. The fact that Asta like just blew away the fire and just like stabbed it out of their hands, and they like nearly cleaved their entire neck just off, and it's showing that Asta is very strong. We're seeing like just the amount of brute strength he's able to put out at this point. But then we got to answer the question, like I did like the flashback, but then what really happened with that guy and all that? Did he really betray him? Because it really sounds like you're like, no, I was on your side, and it's like, oh, they betrayed us. So it's like, what actually happened? Did like, you know, did someone catch him at that point? Was it actually someone else then that kind of like gave away a position of like all those people that we saw in the tribesmen? Like, what was exactly going on with that? And the question is, and all that, like, is there going to be anything more we're going to add to, like, her arsenal and, like, how much more terrifying she is? Because she's already activated her eyes. She's already, like, showing off that she's like, I'm using my full power. I'm going to wreck you up. And that Asta hasn't broken a sweat for the most part. Like, he honestly hasn't really, and that's the thing, like, I hope that isn't the case, because like it just doesn't seem like Asta's having that much of the challenge right now, when we had Vito who was stomping and Asta was like literally gritting his teeth, but like biting down, like, no, this is it, I'm going down, everyone on him. And that's the, I'd say, if anything, I'm liking kind of where the fight is going, but I'm a little bit worried that like the fight is going to end very abruptly or quickly, and the fact that we still need to see a little bit of Mars and the other kind of the Diamond Kingdom. But I don't know, it just feels like maybe there's like a pacing issue at the moment, which I really hope that's not the case, because I've been really loving how like Clover's pacing has been at the moment. But generally I did enjoy the chapter, and I am very excited for the Asta technique. What do you think it's going to be? Is it going to utilize both the swords at some point? Is it going to use both the Demon Slaying and the Demon Sealing Sword to make some kind of technique in order? Is he just going to do it at his brute strength, or is he going to do the same sort of absorbing technique that we've seen like before, and actually utilize that and call it into something else? I'm kind of curious to see what he's actually called it, since there is no official name for it yet. Honestly, I've just like called it all this time like the Reflection Blast, or that like technique, the Reflection Blast, like anything like that. But let's see what we're going to be having like very soon in the next chapter of Black Clover. Oh, I'll give this like a 7.5. I think it was definitely a good chapter. Did feel a little bit rushed in there, and I'm kind of hoping to get a little bit of answers, and I am a little bit about like Fana right now. I'm thinking like she is a little bit more like weaker compared to what Vito was. He was a monster, but I really do hope that you like bring it up, because clearly she has some very interesting stuff, like combining with the fire and the ice alongside adding to like cool like dragon thing that she had. So I'm looking forward to like what more they got like later on in the series with Black Clover. But that's all from me. Looking forward to chapter 87 very soon. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you guys though next time.